We kick off this mailbag with this question coming in from one of our loyal subscribers. If you haven't subscribed, be like Robert Bruce. Robert with this: hello, my Celtic brother Jack, who is a Celtic fan. Hello, Chase. With the acquisition of Malcolm Brogdon and Gallinari, the Celtics seem to have a deeper bench now. Do you think they need a backup center for the Time Lord? I really don't think they need to put a huge emphasis on that. If you want to bring back Daniel Tice, then just do so. He can be your backup 5 throughout the regular season. Then when it comes playoff time, you might have to mix and match depending on if you go small or if you go larger against that particular lineup night in, night out. But the Celtics, like you said, Robert, are a deeper team, and I think they're a better team that just finished runner-up in the NBA Finals to the Golden State Warriors. Really good squad. I like the acquisition of Brogdon. It's a steal to get Gallinari on that price tag considering what he was making last year. He gets bought out by San Antonio, goes to Boston for $6.5 million per year for a guy who's a really good three-point shooter on a roster that could use spot-up three-point shooters. So the Celtics, once again, one of the better teams in the NBA. They will be factors in competing for an NBA championship this year. D. Wilkes: should the Celtics go after John Collins? I don't think so. Unless you were to trade away Robert Williams, and I think Robert Williams has a lot of value. Like, I like that front court of Al Horford and Robert Williams. I thought it posed a lot of nice little matchup problems against other teams, including the Warriors. They started Kevon Looney, then they went away from that. Steve Kerr did, and they started Otto Porter Jr. because of the size and the length of that starting 5 for Boston. And if you go after John Collins, you have to give up a lot, and they might give up a lot to trade for Kevin Durant. And then if you keep Robert Williams and have John Collins, yeah, you're super athletic, but I don't know. There's a clashing there of athletic bigs, and I just think that you can get better value out there for more of a position of need. But D. Wilkes, I definitely see where you're coming from because John Collins is a good player. Who do you think the Celtics should go after besides Kevin Durant? I think that they've done a great job this offseason. I think that Brad Stevens deserves a lot of credit. To get Malcolm Brogdon for basically nothing, that's a steal. If he's able to stay healthy, he's a very good point guard. By making that deal for Danilo Gallinari after he was bought out by San Antonio, it's a steal. $6.5 million per year for a very, very good three-point shooter. Outside of that, this roster seems to be in good shape. You could probably make the argument that they could use a backup center. The ones available right now: DeMarcus Cousins, LaMarcus Aldrige, Hassan Whiteside. Those are the top centers on the market. Those are players who I would probably bypass if I'm Boston, but they could come at a position of need. Peter Gazer: do you think there is more to this trade? Maybe Jaylen Brown privately asked for a trade or didn't commit verbally long term. Thanks for answering my question, Dad. I got you, son. Appreciate you for watching the show, man. And I'm happy to answer everybody's questions and as many questions as possible. So, Peter, as far as this Jaylen Brown, him reportedly wanting out of Boston, that came from WEEI. It is a flagship radio show in Boston. I'm not sure if they're looking for clicks. I'm not sure if there's stock behind that report. If you're Jaylen Brown, do you think that you can be a number one on a different team that can make it to the championship? Maybe. And if that's the case, maybe he wants to try to be that guy. And let's be real, whether it's a professional athlete, somebody like me in the broadcasting space, or you, depending on your occupation. Me personally, I'm always trying to challenge myself. I'm a competitor, right? I want to be the best that I can be. I want to fulfill my potential, and I want to see what I can become. For Jaylen Brown, he probably wants to see if he can be that number one guy at one point. And if the trade request comes from that, then maybe there is that. Now, there hasn't been a trade request, just some reports about Jaylen Brown, quote-unquote, wanting out. Now, I think he's a good fit alongside Jason Tatum. If I'm Boston, I would think long and hard about including him in a deal for Kevin Durant because it helps me compete for a championship over the next, let's say, 3 to 5 years. And at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But for Brown, developmental piece who has turned into a stud on both ends of the floor, high-level defensive player who continues to get better offensively, that's all credit to the work that he's put in. I have so much respect for Jaylen Brown. Some might say the Warriors are offseason winners. They won a championship and they were able to get good value deals and replenish that talent to a certain degree. But who do you think is the biggest NBA offseason winner? Give me a name right now in the comment section. Garnopolis Gaming. The Celtics have filled out their roster perfectly with the acquisitions of Brogdon and Gallinari. Why would they take a chance on KD? Is this just an attempt to disgruntle JB by the Nets? No, I don't think so. It's an attempt for Boston to compete for a championship. They sniffed the title last year, and they came up just a little bit short. So they're looking at a two-way combo of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and if they don't think that's enough to win an NBA championship, and they think that KD moves the needle and gets them over the hump, then maybe you take that risk, and maybe you take that chance. I have respect for organizations who are aggressive, who swing for the fences, who, take a chance, and they're bold about their championship pursuit. We saw it with the Los Angeles Rams. We've seen it countless times at the NBA level. That's really, I think, the thinking process and the thought process for Boston here. DC Marley, if you swap Tatum for KD on that Celtics team that was in the finals, the Celtics would more than likely be NBA champs now. And maybe the Celtics believe that, going back to that previous question. Maybe the Celtics think that if they had KD on this team and you swap them out, they would win the championship. Now, if you swap Tatum for KD, that's a little bit different. And I think that'd be a hard pill to swallow for the organization as well as Bostonians out there. If you swap Jaylen Brown with KD, I still think you win the NBA championship. Tatum, though, look, I think he just ran out of steam. I understand. He didn't impress a lot of people throughout the NBA Finals. He struggled. There's no question about that. He came up short in some really big moments. But up until the NBA Finals, I don't think the Celtics get to where they get to without Tatum going off on that road game against Milwaukee and him doing what he did throughout that playoff run. Don't panic. Next up, if you were the Celtics, would you trade Smart to get a better bench? Where does Smart fit after the Brogdon trade? I like Marcus Smart. He's so critical to the Celtics' identity. He proved last year that he could play multiple positions, and a lot of people had questions about that. He went into the year as the prototypical point guard without ever really having owned that role, and he owned it. He succeeded. Not only did he win Defensive Player of the Year, which is very rare for a guard, but he handled those point guard duties really, really well. I wouldn't trade him away. Defensively, he's a bulldog. Offensively, you have to live with some of the ill-advised shots, but he's so critical to what the Celtics want to be as a basketball culture. I don't think I'd trade him away. Now, is he going to start, and is Brogdon going to come in off the bench? Does Smart come in off the bench? Does Brogdon start? Right now, I'd probably lean Marcus Smart. What you'd have to do if you wanted to start both, Smart at 2 and Brogdon at the 1, you'd have to bench one of Al Horford or Robert Williams. Shane Peterman, could the Celtics sign DeMarcus Cousins or LaMarcus Aldrige? I do think that the Celtics, if they have any needs on that roster, and there are very few needs on that current team because they're locked and loaded. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Robert Williams. What a terrific starting five that was with versatility on both ends. You added Malcolm Brogdon without giving up virtually anything. You signed Danilo Gallinari for $6.5 million per year. That's great. In that front court, they're a little bit thin, though. And DeMarcus Cousins would just be a good depth piece, giving them, let's say, 10 minutes per night during the regular season. Sometimes he gets DNP'd in the playoffs, and that's okay. LaMarcus Aldrige, I love that sweet baseline mid-range J. I think that helps the floor spacing a little bit. I think because of that, he could occupy that backup Al Horford role and still play alongside Robert Williams or play just solely by himself as a 5. So, Shane, I kind of like it, and they'll come on the cheap. Lazy Laker, what's the latest on Kai Sotto after he didn't get drafted? So, just some context. During the NBA draft lead-up, we were talking a lot about international prospects from all across the globe, and there was a big interest in Kai Sotto because we have a large Filipino audience. By the way, everybody in the Philippines tuning in, if you were impacted by that earthquake that registered on the Richter scale of more than 7, I hope that all of you are safe and sound in the Philippines because we here at Chat Sports love you. And Kai Sotto, hopefully him and his family are okay because he was attempting to be the first Filipino basketball player who was born in the Philippines to get drafted. Now, Jordan Clarkson and Jalen Green are of Filipino descent, but Kai Sotto was trying to make history. As we know, he didn't get drafted. So here's the latest with Kai. He did go undrafted. I thought this was weird that he didn't participate in the NBA Summer League. Would have been a great opportunity for him to showcase his skills. The average attendance per day at a couple of those Summer League games, 11,000. They broke records, and he could have played in that and gained a lot of traction, maybe signed a UDFA deal. I've always said this. If Taco Fall and Boban Marjanovic can play in the NBA, I think Kai Sotto deserves a shot. Because he didn't play in the Summer League, because he didn't get drafted, he is under contract in the NBL in Australia, one of the best international leagues in the world, with the Adelaide 36ers, and he's expected to assume a larger role with the team because the 36ers going to lose some players in that front court. So this past year, only played about 15 minutes per game. The production was pretty solid. This upcoming year, maybe he improves his stock a little bit so that he can carve out a role on an NBA roster. Before we continue on our mailbag, taking all these questions from our loyal subscribers, you might be subscribed, but are your notifications on? If they're not, make sure you turn them on. Therefore, anytime we go live, anytime we publish a video, you will be notified and receive that push notification. How do you do it? You follow the steps right here to my right. You go to the settings portion on your app, on your phone, scroll down, tap YouTube, tap notifications, and then turn on allow notifications. Therefore, again, once we do anything here at Chat Sports, you will stay in the know.